Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and this is Patron Hangout number 215. And welcome, everybody. I'm glad I'm here, basically because I had massive problems with the technical issues right before the show, and you don't know what I had to do to get everything done. But I'm here, and you're here. So, hi, Farming Felicity. You like the glasses? Well, the reason I have the glasses on is because I can't see crap. So my eyes have been going downhill really rapidly, and from cataracts. And I made it through like a year with 2 prescription changes, but in the last month, I'm like every day it just gets worse, and now I need distance glasses to see the computer. So luckily, yes, I'm scheduled for surgery on Monday for the left eye, and the next Monday for the right eye. All I can hope is they don't screw anything up and that it improves. Everybody says it works. So yeah. These are, yeah. So eventually when I come back, I shall have good distance vision, but I'll probably be wearing these because I will have to have reading glasses. So anyway, you can see. Well, that wasn't my problem. My problem was I couldn't bring any of my photos over, and it just wouldn't transfer. So, well, that's an interesting start to the show, but I always welcome questions. Hello, Pat, how are you? What qualifications do you need to be a criminal profiler? I will answer that because a lot of people do ask that, and they always wonder that. First of all, I want to let you know that there's no work in criminal profiling. There's tons of people want to be criminal profilers, and there's zero work in the field. You become a criminal profiler. How? Well, that's the issue. Ask about qualifications. I developed the first criminal profiling certificate program in the country. The idea was for people who were in law enforcement, and also for people in military, worked in military types of law enforcement, and then would like to learn profiling, then to go into detective work and such. And it was a great program. Unfortunately, the college that I did it with decided it was like too much work for the students, so they watered it down and then destroyed it and got rid of me. So I don't think there's anything really out there where people can learn true criminal profiling, not the Hollywood nonsense, but to learn how to analyze crime scene analysis, essentially crime analysis, to look at the evidence. So that really kind of doesn't exist. And if it did exist, the problem is, where would you get a job when you finished getting your master's degree? Where do you go work? Because the police departments aren't hiring criminal profilers. They're not hiring them as independents, and they're not hiring them into the departments, which, if there was a huge department, I think this would be a grand idea. Like, I'm in Prince George's County, Maryland. I don't think it would harm them if I were a profiler for Prince George's County or for Washington, D.C. Big departments where, when the detectives are going out on a new case that's maybe a little questionable. I mean, not one of the cases where, you go to the location and the guy's standing there with a gun and you're like, did you do it? And he's like, yep. Okay, you don't need a criminal profiler. But on weird cases, a little concerning, that you're not quite sure what happened, what you want to be able to do is get the crime scene photos straight back to the profiler as quickly as possible. And while you're working the case, bring evidence into the criminal profiler, who can sit in a room like me and study this stuff while you're out there doing interviews and all the crap that a detective has to do, that they don't have time to think very much. It's just a problem. It would be nice to have that criminal profile, just be able to analyze everything. And then the detectives can roll back in and go, what do you got? Okay, I looked at the crime scene. This is the blood spatter pattern, blah, blah, blah. Here's a good avenue of investigation. Does that exist? No. You can join the FBI as an agent, and you can hope to become a part of their behavioral science unit, which has, I think, 9 profiles, at least the last time I checked. And they don't really do much profiling as far as going out and working on real cases. They show up when something like the Long Island serial killer, where the media is going insane and the people are going insane, saying, you need to call the FBI in. And they finally roll in and they go, profilers. And their profiling methodology is not something I approve of, because it's a lot of guesswork and a lot of made up stuff, and it's not focused on the evidence. So I'm not fond of the FBI profiling. So you're going to work in profiling? Probably not. Who works in profiling? And this is important. This is my daughter. She's a detective. She's been a detective in child abuse, sex crimes, homicide, and domestics. Who do you think profiles all her cases? She does. In the first 48, she's the one who has to figure it all out. That's why I'm focused on wanting to, I'm going to, if I get the energy, to have on this my third channel, a profiling school, mostly for detectives. So when they're sitting there in their cruisers, they're at the office and bored, they're driving home, or they're going to go into detective work. Maybe they're patrol officers at the time, but they want to become a detective. They can listen to my channel and learn. So when they get there, they can profile in the first 48 because they're the ones going to be doing it. So you want to become a profiler, become a detective. Are you over 30? You're doomed. So that's it. That's my answer on that. Who's being a sous chef? What? Hi, Sylvan and Anne. And with that, I should go start dinner. I'll send you my address. Oh my gosh. It's funny. I'm watching a show called, I don't even know what it's called. It's a Korean show. It's a time travel show, but there's all this, it's a chef show. So I'm looking at all this great food that they keep preparing, and I'm really wanting it to show up. There are courses called criminal behavior. Okay. Yes, there are. The issue about criminal behavior courses. There's a difference between how you become a psychopath and how a psychopath behaves. My focus is on how a psychopath behaves, because if you are a detective, you really don't care how the hell he became a psychopath. You know, that he had a bad home life, that somebody says this, he said that. What you want to know is, how does he behave? How does he talk? So that when you're interviewing the guy, you don't say, well, that was a nice guy, when you really were talking to the killer. So yes, you want to understand that. Farming Felicity, what is the daftest, I love it, misconception people have about being a criminal profiler? I never thought of a question until now. Well, there you go. That we chase serial killers into the night, and that the serial killer and the profiler become these frenemies almost, you know, because he understands that the profiler understands him, and therefore he wants to test the profiler, and he wants to have some kind of relationship. And so he leaves clues everywhere. And then of course, the profiler is going to get killed or something, or almost get killed, because of course, and the profiler kills the serial killer. It's all nonsense. Profilers rarely work a fresh crime scene. Ever. All of the cases I've ever worked on are cold cases. I look at photos. I look at the crime scene photos. I look at the autopsy reports. I look at the autopsy photos. I'm sitting, when I worked with police departments, I've flown to location, and then I go hang out for like a week in their department, and they put me in a room. Here's an interview room. So there's no windows and some handcuffs hanging around. And I sit there for 10 to 12 hours. Sometimes they'll come and say, hey, you want to have lunch? Want to go get a beer? But meanwhile, I say, here, bring this, bring that, and I study. So no, we're not running around in the outside world chasing anybody. Basically, we're just sitting there studying. And so as a profiler, the number one qualification is that you find crime scene evidence fascinating, and therefore you don't have a problem studying stuff for hours because you find it fascinating. And for YouTube, it's the same thing here. I love to study cases where I find the evidence fascinating. Now you'll notice that some of you will send me in a case and like, Pat, will you do this case? I'm like, yeah, no. Why? Because it's not interesting. There's no evidence for me to really analyze. It's a good story for people to tell a story, but there's nothing for me to analyze. Those are two different things. You got YouTubers who tell stories. You've got people, professionals, who analyze. And there's only like a very few of us on the internet who actually analyze the evidence in different cases, because there's something to analyze. Now that you asked that question, I want to point this out, because somebody sent me, and with all the best intentions, I have to turn this. I can see my phone. I just can't see anything else. So a very nice person who has been a patron sent me this video, and she said, um, she sent the video because she thought that the YouTube had very good information, a very good analysis of Amy Bradley, and had some good ideas. And so she sent me the link to YouTube. She said, I just thought she was interesting. Should I have written that with a video? and I felt kind of bad because many of you do send me a video of some other YouTuber. And here's the problem. And this is what I wrote back, and now I feel kind of crappy about it. But, I wrote, she is one of the many YouTubers that simply copies what others have said. It is plagiarism, but many do not know where she copied her info from. I have seen YouTubers do this over and over. Their followers think they're coming up with true analysis, but they simply see the words of others. And I didn't get a response back, so I don't know if she was upset about it. But this is what happened. I went over there. I'm like, she's not a profiler. She's not a detective. She's not an analyst of any sort. She's somebody. And while telling a story is fine, she's telling the story and she's giving an analysis. And what I've seen happen is unbelievable sometimes what happens. I found this one person when I was studying one of the crimes, and she literally pretty much said the same exact words as another YouTuber. The other YouTuber had like 1 million subscribers. She just watched that YouTube. You can click on it. You can get the transcript. And then you can just pretty much read the transcript, but add in your own flavor, so you start to read it and you go, and I think, you know what I think? And your followers have no clue that this other person exists. They haven't seen the other one. So they're like, oh my God, you're so smart. No, you just stole it from the other person. And they will get hundreds of thousands of views on something they plagiarized off of somebody else. So this particular person, when I looked at the Amy Bradley thing, I'm like, total plagiarism. I don't believe for a minute she came up with these ideas in her own head, because she's not, I don't believe it. I believe she just watched other videos and then used them to come up with these ideas of her own. So I want you to the only reason I point this out is I want you to be very careful. If you're interested in learning, if you're interested in getting an analyst's point of view, pick somebody who at least is analyzing, for God's sakes. There are a few different channels that do some reasonable analysis out there besides myself. And although I don't always agree with them and they don't always agree with me, at least it's their own thinking. And they're telling you why they think this. Derek Lavassier, for example, I've seen a bunch of his stuff, and I'm like, all right, don't always agree with you, but you are explaining the evidence and you're explaining how you came to your conclusions. And this is a good thing for people to watch. A deception detective. I'm good with him. His stuff is not copied from anybody. He comes to his own conclusions. So I'm good with that. So what you want to do is go and find the different reasonable experts in the field and learn from them. And don't go to people who are just copying somebody else, because there's a lot of people sitting on their beds with some candles around them, and they just stealing from everybody else. They're making more money than the rest of us. I guess I think it's the under 30 crowd and the candles. They're making a lot of money, but they're stealing it. It's all plagiarism. Just want you to know that. So if you're trying to learn, you're not going to learn from there. All right, I got to put my glasses back on. I can't see crap. Christoph says, I think the term criminal profile has a mysterious and sexy connotation. and the Bubba guy. But that's because of Hollywood and the media. That's absolutely true. Criminal Minds, the worst show ever made for TV for criminal profiling. So some small department has, a serial killer loose, and they're going to kill the next moon, which they don't do. And then they contact the FBI, which they never do because they hate the FBI in general. They like the FBI for evidence collection, but that's pretty much, evidence analysis, but not for the profiling stuff. And then the FBI jumps on this really nice plane and flies out to the location, and everybody gets along and they solve the crime. It's such nonsense. And I will say this, you FBI people, look, I like some of the things you do. Okay. Not every FBI profiler I have an issue with. There's some FBI profiles that are very good, mostly because they don't follow the concept of profiling by the FBI, but they actually focus on evidence. And I have my favorites over time. I do love your work with just basically your evidence analysis, DNA stuff, all that stuff. That's all great. You have some really interesting stuff like the trucker serial killer thing, where because you're looking at truckers who might be involved in serial homicide because they move across the country. I love that. I think that's really cool. So I know I'm not opposed to everything, but I'm opposed to a few people in your organization who promote profiling as some kind of psychic crap like John Douglas. Not a fan. And the fact that it's promoted through all of Hollywood and gives you, it does wonders for you, but it's not reality, and that's not the way things work. So, yeah. Anyway, Dr. Wu? Who Dr. Wu? I don't know that one. Criminal profiling is actually pure logic. Criminal profiling is looking at evidence and taking the evidence and determining the best avenues of investigation. And a lot of times you'll see me do this. That's sign language, probably, because I'm fluent in American Sign Language. But I like the avenue issue. I want you to see the avenues. Just because you have an idea doesn't mean it's absolutely 100% going to be the answer. So when you analyze a case, you analyze evidence, you say, this is the best avenue that I think you should look at. Maybe 80% of your effort should go here. Maybe 15% here, maybe 5% over here. Don't get tunnel vision, but you want to put your efforts into the most likely scenario. But you want to have, every time you do an analysis, and I push this forever, and the FBI does not do it, which is why I have problems with the FBI. If you're going to put a profile out, every single conclusion you put out there should be supported by evidence, or at least, in other words, if I say, I think this is something I want you to look at. This is why, because this evidence supports looking at that. I do not put out anything that I cannot support with some evidence to some extent. In other words, I'm not going to give you a race. I'm not going to give you a gender. I'm not going to give you an age. I'm not going to give you educational level. I'm not going to tell you what kind of car he drives, what kind of hobbies he's involved with, whether he's married or not married, unless there's something at the crime scene which supports that. If there's something at the crime scene that supports that, I will then explain to you what at the crime scene supports my conclusion. And if I don't do that, I'm a waste of space. And if you're going to just say, if you remember Johnny Carson, and putting an envelope to his head going, it's a white guy who lives with his mother, is between 30 and 40 years old, and has a knife collection, a dog, and a green car. What the? If you put that crap out there, you're not a profile. So, anyway. All right. Okay, I want to hear what Christophe's having. As a non-US American, I noticed this in US film. The running gag is the competition between the local authorities and the FBI. In the end, I haven't seen that to be a running gag because the FBI has a lot of power, so they tend to be able to control a lot of media. So I haven't seen that, but interesting. Any publicity is good publicity. It means getting case details out there. Okay, any publicity is good publicity. Yes and no. A lot of publicity is completely wrong. We have a lot of stuff that goes out on the internet, which is just gossip and garbage. And that does not help anything. What it does is some people down rabbit holes. It makes accusations go against so many people. And it's not based on evidence. So that's why I have an issue with a lot of YouTube channels. Not because they're doing well, but because they're promoting stuff that is not based on evidence. And that's problematic for me. Wait. Pat made me a skeptic. We should be a skeptic. If you're looking for entertainment, you can get that anyplace. I would suggest stopping looking at YouTube and just going and watching something fictional. I'm watching The Tunnel right now, which I actually saw before, but I recommended it to my daughter. The Tunnel is a Thai. It's on Netflix. It's Thai. Don't watch the Korean version. Personally, I like the Thai better. The Thai version of The Tunnel, and it's a time travel thing, and it's a serial killer thing, and the profiling is abysmal, abysmal. But the story is really cool. The story is really cool, and so my daughter is enjoying it. And I went back. I had to watch the whole stupid thing over again. I accepted it as fiction, and the profiling, I'm just like, oh, that is awful. But the story is really good. So if you're going there for just enjoyment, do that for enjoyment. Do that because it's exciting. Do that because it makes you be involved in something that isn't even true, so you don't feel guilty about feeling bad about anything. So anyway, who is that? He also explains his reasoning fairly decently. Who? Okay, I gotta go back up and look at Felicity. How do you what? How do you deal with looking into? I want to find out what you just said, but I'm trying to go backwards. How do you deal with looking into historical context of a crime if needed? It's very tricky. So when you go back too far in time, one of the problems is it's hard to get good information that will help you understand the crime and the time it happened in. I did, of course, I'm very proud of it. I analyzed the death of Cleopatra, the life and death of Cleopatra. I've written a book which is called The Murder of Cleopatra. I believe she was murdered. I've been to Egypt twice. I did a discovery documentary on it. And then I went back to Egypt to write my book. And I looked at all of the evidence. And I had some accusations that you say that. I had some accusations that you don't understand the culture of the time. But of course, they got their understanding of the culture of the time from the people who wrote the history, which a lot of times was written by the winners, the people who, a lot of that is real questionable. I based all of my evidence on architecture, geography, the behavior of somebody who, regardless of what time they were in, would do what they did. And so I believe my book, which is The Murder of Cleopatra, I don't know if I have a picture, supports that. By the way, I completely forgot. I did a 10-part series on YouTube. Go and put in Profiler Pat Brown, The Murder of Cleopatra. And I did a whole 10-part series where I explained everything I did in the book. So it's free. You don't have to buy the book, and you'll get the point of everything I had to say about why I believe Cleopatra was murdered and everything about her life. And she had an absolutely fascinating life. And I believe most of the stuff written about her life is incorrect. So it's very difficult to try to. What's a CPD? What the heck is a CPD course? Would you write? What's a CPD course? I've already written a course. I will say this. I had a lot more energy 20, 30 years ago. And to start all over again, I don't know that I want to do it. So I do want to do a YouTube channel. And the reason I want to do the YouTube channel is not because I'm not concerned about making money. What I want to do is reach the detectives who are not going to pay for the stupid course, and probably nobody is, and they can watch it in their free time. Maybe it will affect how they handle their cases. So I'm good with that. How does it work if you're not officially involved in the investigation of a cold case? Yeah, that's a great question. If I've told families I cannot work on your case unless the police invite me in. And if they invite me in, then I have access for the most part, unless they're being sleazy, which I can name one department, which is true, that they were sleazy about it. But anyway, generally speaking, I would go in and they would give me access to everything. And I would then start with the crime scene photos, the autopsy photos, the police reports. I'd work my way out from from here, I'd work my way out. And then I would sit down with them. I would give my my analysis of the crime, my profile, and say, I hope this helps you. I have stopped doing that because for the most part, it doesn't help anybody. Now, not because I can't solve the crime, but because they don't have the evidence 10 years later, 5 years later, they don't have evidence. If you don't have evidence, you can't take it to court. And that's a problem. You can point out the killer. You can say all the reasons it's the guy. But if there's not solid evidence, which is video, video confession, or DNA, they're never going to take it to court. The prosecutor simply will not. I've had a lot of detectives go, "Oh my God, you're right. We did not even see this. Thank you so much." And I'd leave and I take that file and shove it right in my report, shove it in the file, never tell the family. Why? Because I want to keep working. You know what I mean? They realize that they probably failed in the first 48, first week, the first 2 weeks, failed to get the evidence they needed. Not that they always could get it, but they didn't. And therefore they know it'll never go to court. And the last thing I need to do is put my profile out there and screw themselves. So I understand what the police are going through. It's unfortunate. You're going to have to watch the whole show. I'm not going to get into that here, Tractor Fed. I have 10, 11 videos on that. Go watch The Murder of Cleopatra. It's on my channel, the whole series. All right. I do want to point out, because somebody has said this about, let me move on to some, these are great questions. I don't think I've had these kind of questions in ages, but I want to point out, because you're talking about cold cases, I was just before the show started, what about that new Jennifer Kesse information? I'm like, what Jennifer Kesse information? All right. So here's a statement. New DNA evidence and shrinking potential suspect list. I don't know how the hell it shrinks. How's it going to? Pretty much. In the Jennifer Kesse case, she left her apartment and vanished. I don't know how the group shrunk, but anyway, new DNA evidence and shrinking potential suspect list heat up the Jennifer Kesse case almost 20 years later. Parents say. All right, now I want to point out parents say. What does that mean? It means the parents want the police and the public and the media to work on the case of their missing or murdered loved one. They will push everything. So just take that into, just to understand that. Investigators believe Kesse was abducted outside her condo on Tuesday, January 24th, 2006, near the mall at Millennia in Orlando. I have a whole video on that. If I remember, I'll link it below. If I don't, put in profiler Pat Brown, Jennifer Kesse, and you'll come up with the video I did on. She has never been seen since, which means also her body hasn't been found. In a Facebook post on October 21st, 2025, her parents, Drew and Jennifer Joyce Kesse, said they had recently met with special agents from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, that's FDLE, who told them investigators found DNA on evidence that was never tested. FDLE officials said investigators were able to narrow the list of people they believe could have information about what happened to their daughter. Okay, be profilers. What the hell is that mean? somebody say what does that even mean? They found DNA. Let me repeat this. DNA on evidence that was never tested. And that they have narrowed the list of people they believe. First of all, DNA testing and the people they've narrowed, I don't know that that has anything to do with each other. What are your questions? So you see this. Thank you, Mark. There you go. Very good question. Where did they find that? I don't know. What the heck? What are we talking about? First of all, she's missing. She's missing. That is true. DNA can be tested on smaller amounts now. You can get touch DNA. Yes, it's wonderful. However, what are they testing it on? I don't understand that either. So she goes to her car. I forgot what was dropped there. Maybe her key was. I don't know. If somebody grabbed her near her car, what DNA are they leaving? I don't even understand what the heck that would be. I don't know. I'm reading this thing going, I'm going to guess, just because I feel sad, kind of sad, probably it'll just vanish in the next number of months. I don't know what they're saying they found DNA from. Maybe the guy could have put his hand on the car. If the guy put his hand on the car and there's touch DNA from his hand on the car, I will be highly excited, because that would be the one thing that could break everything open. This is true, because if you have somebody's DNA on the car, okay, there was a suspicion of, I've forgotten. I've done the case, so I've forgotten half of the crap. There was some suspicion of somebody she knew. Well, if somebody she knew had their hand on the car and that DNA came up, would that prove he was the killer or abductor? No, but it's interesting, because he could have leaned on her car on another day. DNA just doesn't vanish. So if you can find DNA after 20 freaking years, I'm pretty sure you can find DNA that was there a month before. So he's not going to prove anything. If a DNA is from a guy they've never heard of, so who is this guy? And it turns out that the guy's in prison for 2 other rapes and murders, then you might have something. If the DNA belongs to somebody who worked in the location, that might be interesting. I thought it's possible. There's a bunch of different possibilities. If it's linked to somebody who is in the range of where they might have come from or gone to, where her car was found, it may be interesting. And I hope it means something. But I just want you to understand that it may be meaningless as well. But the media and the parents will push everything before the police even come up with any conclusions. So that's just, I thought DNA, good question. I thought touch DNA doesn't mean much. It depends. So you just pointed this out down here. Same with JonBenet. All right. If the touch DNA in JonBenet's case belongs to her family, it's fairly meaningless. Correct. Because JonBenet played with a lot of little kids, she could have played with a child, and that child could, you can just pick up touch DNA from anybody. You could lick her fingers, and she could put it in her pants, and now this little boy who's 5 years old, his DNA is in her underwear. It could be that simple. It could be somebody you doing the laundry. It could be somebody from the factory. There's a million reasons why touch DNA can be someplace. Now, the only way that touch DNA would have great meaning, if that touch DNA belonged to a child pedophile, child sex offender, who was in the area at the time, but had no connection to the Ramseys, and his DNA showed up in her underwear, I would say, I'm wrong. The Ramseys have nothing to do with it. If that were true. If the DNA comes from anybody in their circle, it fairly much is meaningless. So, but if it came from a child predator that shouldn't have been in their circle and had no reason to be in their circle, then I would say, all right, I'll go with that. So touch DNA means something if it means something. One of the scariest examples, I've used this over and over, was a businessman was killed in a park. And when they did DNA testing on him, they found DNA from a homeless guy. And they're like, oh my God, the homeless guy killed him. No, what happened was the homeless guy keeled over. They took him in the ambulance and put the thing on their finger. And then they used the same thing on the dude. So they transferred the DNA from the homeless guy to the dead guy. But the homeless guy turned out to be innocent because he was in ICU at the time that the dead guy got killed. So you got to be very careful with a DNA. But there are some times when touch DNA has meaning, but you have to understand when it has meaning and when it doesn't. So that's the important part. Familiar DNA, oh yes, can help if they're not in the system, but familiar DNA has done wonderful things, but again, it all depends whether the familial DNA will then link to somebody who obviously did it, to some extent, that you're like, kind of hard to say why, if he's linked to this family and he's in the area, and yeah. So it all depends. You have to just be very, very careful about how you understand things. So anyway, Jennifer Kesse, I hope that something comes of it. I do. Now, another question has been asked recently. I'm going to do this. I'm doing this case. So here we are, and the new report came out, and just a second here. Now, see, I got to put my glasses up behind the screen here. The new report came. What the heck? I've lost my stuff on it. Hold on. Oh, hold on a second. Ellen Greenberg. Sorry, I forgot her name. That we're looking up. Ellen Greenberg. I did another show on Ellen Greenberg, and I said, although I believe she could have killed herself with a knife, that there was enough concerning things about the statements and the behavior of the fiance that made me say that case should be looked at more carefully. The family has been saying forever she was murdered, and the new medical examiner just came out and said no, it was absolutely suicide. And Dr. Grande just came out, and he did his teacher steps 20 times in apartment, which was locked from inside. Ellen Greenberg update analysis just came out recently, and he got basically. It's kind of funny because the comments are like 99% against what he said. And I have to honestly say, I think it's probably the worst video I think he's ever done. He does a lot of good stuff. So I don't have an objection to him in general. And he explains why. The reason I don't have a problem with Todd Grande is because he explains why he comes to his conclusions, even if they're wrong. I explain why I come to my conclusions, even if I'm wrong. He is a psychologist. He is a therapist. He is not a crime analyst, although, he does analyze crimes, because he found out that after, oh my gosh, I don't know, it was a decade worth of work where he did YouTube videos on therapy, and he just worked so hard, made so little. He found crime paid more, and he's making a fortune on it now. And so he's got a good sense of humor. He does these very short videos. People love him. He makes money. And a lot of times he's perfectly reasonable with his conclusions. He goes forward against, what would, in this case, his whole thing is mostly about, did a stranger come in and kill Ellen Greenberg? And the answer, of course, is no. That's ridiculous. But he goes into a big, huge spiel on that. I'm like, why are you even going there? It's either she killed herself or a fiance killed her. That's the answer. It's one of those. Nobody else involved. So I didn't find his video very inspiring, shall we say. But I've been asked to do a review of the new medical examiner report that came out. It's like 30 pages. But before I did that, I wanted to be sure I watched my own video again, because that was 2.5 hours. I'm like, what did I even say? So I rewatched my video. I watched Dr. Grande's video, because I wanted to know where I came from, where I came from. And then I was just curious where he came from. So after the show is over now, the Hangout, I will be reviewing the 30-page medical examiner report, now that I know where all my thinking was 3 years ago, and decide whether the new medical examiner has reasonable conclusions, whether, as I pointed out in my 3-year-old video, she could have, it's not impossible that she could have committed suicide the way that the evidence shows, and also her state of mind. However, on the other hand, I see possible evidence that it was a homicide because of the way the evidence showed, and because of the behavior and statements of the fiance. So I lean toward homicide, but I'm not opposed. Theoretically, it could have been suicide, but I want to see when you do one of these shows, you only have what public information is available. Now, I'm hoping, I haven't looked at it yet, what this 30 pages of this new medical examiner report show. And I don't know that she's cagily going to build a suicide thing, or whether she's going to actually show the actual evidence and information that is needed to make a determination. I don't know yet. But after the show is over, that's my next job. And if it all goes well, I'll put that video up this evening. So have to at least be undetermined. Yes, that's very good, JC. Yes. If you cannot rule out homicide, you can't prove one or the other at this point in time, at least from what I know from outside. I lean toward homicide, but I cannot say that suicide isn't possible. Definitely not an accidental death, unless you fell on the knife 20 times. Like her fiance seems to want to think she fell on the knife, but 20 times might be extreme. So yeah, it should be undetermined. Absolutely, 100%. Now we're speaking another language. Ich kenne nur Stefan Dirk. Okay. I know nothing. I can't do this behind our backs. Come on, now my German is really terrible. He's such a okay. Many people like Dr. Grande, many people do not. I will say this. The reason I don't have a problem with Dr. Grande is because it at least explains his viewpoint. Now, mind you, again, he's not a criminologist, he's not a profiler. He does do analysis of crimes, which may be a lot of times past what his training is. However, all the people that say he has no right to say anything about like psychology or whatever because he's not a true doctor, get out of here. Sorry. He's a therapist. He studied all the psychology crap. He's as much of a doctor, in my opinion, as any psychiatrist, psychologist, or whatever. I don't have any problem with that. But is he a criminologist? No. But sometimes he does a pretty good job. He does a better job than a lot of people, and he does explain why he comes to his conclusion. And therefore, he allows people to then determine whether they think his conclusions are correct. And I respect that. So if nothing else, I respect that. Whereas when I hear a YouTuber go off and make a million things, saying a whole bunch of crap they know nothing about and don't explain it, I have issues with that. Because they're trying to teach something they have no ability to do, and that they don't even bother to explain it. They just say it because it makes money, So that's two different things. So I'm not against the guy. Yeah, it's huge right now, the internet. So I'm going to work on the rest of this. I had to listen to my own video for like 2.5 hours, and that was kind of it's kind of weird to listen to your own video. What did I say? No, so it's terrible, but it's a good question, as what does it actually mean? All right, so she fell. She fell on her knife. His behavior, his 911 call was so off. That's one of the reasons. If you look back, and I will link it below, but I will also put it in my new video, my 2.5 hour discussion of this. I went back, and that's why I actually watched the whole thing, because I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I wanted to see if I made sense. And that's one of the things I brought out. The things that he said in the 911 call were so not correct, not right for a person who just found their loved one. This is a guy who didn't even bother to see if she was alive when he walked in the door. He calls 911 and says, she's dead in the corner. He doesn't even go over and check on her. His behavior is so suspicious that could he be weird? Could he be Aspergery? Could he be this? Could he be that? Sure. But his behavior is very questionable. And yes, but still, homicide is definitely possible with the evidence. Yes. I also mentioned Peter Hyatt on that. They took away. I have a link in my video to Peter Hyatt and his statement analysis of this case. I hope it's still there. I haven't looked. Yes, that's true. His family cleaned the crime scene. Did they have associations with the police? No, everybody always goes for police cover-up, and that is not usually the case. Usually it's just incompetence. So I'm going to go with that. They were influential and rich. Sometimes the police will defer to somebody with power, not because they're corrupt, but just because people who have power, we all tend to sort of like back off. People have money. It's very hard, especially when you're working in a political system. It's like, oh, here they come, and the pressure is really extreme. So it's not necessarily corruption, but it can be fear. It can be fear of the police department is very political. If you piss off the wrong people, you lose your job. It's a mess. I mean, it's more complicated than people even understand. So, I'm going to go with undue influence, possibly, and see why possibly. Yeah. So, all right, let me go to something else. I want to talk about, this other, I want to talk about this other case. Where is she? Oh, here she is. I was asked to talk about her because she was found hanging in a closet. And the question is this an Ellen Greenberg case or not? Okay, so this is, hold on a second, I got to try to read things. This is the case. It says this comes, of course, People magazine / internet site is turned into garbage along with News Nation, which is sad. But anyway, a woman's hanging death was ruled a suicide. Then the funeral director made some disturbing discoveries. All right. Sonam Kshatriya's, I'm trying to pronounce the name correctly, Kshatriya, I think. Sonam Kshatriya's family doesn't believe she died by suicide. They're pushing for authorities to investigate bruising and other evidence they believe points to murder. Now, one of the problems we have when we're looking at any case, is it coming from the family? Is it coming from the family's attorney? Who's it coming from? Now, mind you, they're on one side and went in the suicide thing, and the police are on the other side. Can you believe the police and the medical examiner, or do you believe the family and their lawyer? It gets a little complicated there, but that's why I hold off on some of these. So anyway, her death was ruled a suicide in 2019. The funeral director sent her body back to the medical examiner for an autopsy because of, quote, troubling bruising found all over her body. Her family is asking the medical examiner to change the manner of death so the police can investigate. Now, the funeral director. The funeral director has seen a lot of bodies, so in theory, he should have some clue to what looks normal for a dead person and what doesn't look normal for a dead person, and what would be discoloration of the skin due to, hours after death, the skin changes and it looks kind of bruisey. Would you think the funeral director should know that? So is he seeing something unusual when he got the body that concerns him enough to say something should be done? That's what they're claiming. I want to put the word claiming because I don't know anything about the funeral director. I don't know who the funeral director is. I don't know if the funeral director is an idiot. The funeral director is paid off. I don't know anything about the funeral director, except what People magazine tells us that this is what the funeral director did. So the unthinkable happened on September 16, 2019, when Sonam Kshatriya, ex-boyfriend, said he found the athletic young professional dead in the walk-in closet of the New York City apartment. And here she is, lovely woman. All right. Sonam's lifeless body, he told police, was hanging by the belt of her terry cloth bathrobe, which was tied to an overhead bar in the closet of her upscale apartment in Manhattan. All right. Let me stop right here. The terry cloth tie on her robe she was hung by. One of the most common ways that you will find people hung is by that darn tie on the terry cloth, the rope. It's like the number one. In hotels, they give you that really nice robe with a really nice tie, and you go hang yourself with it. People who buy also a nice, solid, nice, cushy robe also have a really good tie on it. And it is one of the most popular ways to hang yourself. Why is that? Because it's a solid tie. It's not really wimpy. It's very solid. It's available right in your closet. Oh, look, there's my robe. at a hotel. There's the robe. And so you go and you hang yourself in the closet. And it's a very common way, especially for females, to hang themselves. But males do. So that to me points towards suicide because it's so common. All right. Now, so then it says her body was taken to the New York City Office of Chief Medical Examiner, where Dr. Julian Samuel ruled the 27-year-old death was suicide. Knowing how much the Columbia University graduate who worked in the music publishing industry had to look forward to, her family immediately questioned the medical examiner's ruling, as every parent ever does. My child would never kill themselves, except when they do. They questioned the ruling. No way she would ever take her life. All right. Sometimes that's absolutely true. I say quite often to my 3 children, yeah, no, I'm not suicidal. That's not my way of dealing with things. And I want to tell everybody else, if I find me hanging in the closet, check those 3. They might want the inheritance, but a lot of people say that. And then you look into the history of, and that's true for Ellen Greenberg too. She was depressed. She had looked up suicide on the internet, but she's looked up painless suicide, which is kind of interesting because hanging yourself with that tie from the robe, that's painless suicide. Stabbing yourself 22 times with a knife in the head and chest is not painless suicide. So why she would choose that really kind of makes no sense. So this woman chose the way that more people would take. All right, so fearing foul play. So let's see what happened here. The concerns only grew when the funeral director preparing her body for cremation told the family he found extensive bruises on her body that were significant and troubling. Bruises or discoloration of skin. And I just don't know what condition her body came to. You should know the difference, you would think. But again, this is People Magazine and the family, and I just don't know what I believe. Fearing foul play, the funeral director sent her body back to the ME's office, which I will give him credit for. If he did actually say, hey, I have had God knows how many hundreds of bodies come through here, and this doesn't look right. All right, I'll give him credit on that. Determined to learn the truth, the family has spent years in court pushing to change the ruling and urging police to properly investigate evidence they believe suggests she was murdered. What would that be? May 24th, they denied a petition. Multiple experts contended in the filings that Sonam did not die by suicide, whatever these multiple people are. And again, they're hired by the family and the lawyers. It's hard to tell because I'll tell you, you can pay people for anything. And have been injured in a struggle right before she died. I have over and over many times said to people, one thing about me is you can't buy me. So I will tell you the truth. And usually I do, and then they get mad at me because it wasn't the truth they wanted. Anyway, they said she was injured in a struggle right before she died. They filed a notice of appeal, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so what happened here? All right. In Sonam's case, considerable Pedraza. Now, the Pedraza is what is he? That's their attorney. Never trust an attorney. I don't believe anything an attorney says half the time. Considerable evidence would point to her death having been a homicide and found staged as a suicide to hide the fact of a homicide. Okay. Again, very, very, very rarely have I ever run into a hanging that was actually a homicide. And I can say that absolutely I know one. The many, many dozens I've looked at. All right. So Sonam and her ex-boyfriend, who was not named in the court documents and has not been charged with any crime, had broken up months before her death. He still had limited access to her apartment to walk and feed the dog they shared when she was at work. Okay, I would just say this. If you're scared of your ex-boyfriend, give him the freaking dog. Just saying. All right. 2 weeks before her death, his access was restricted by the building manager, quote, upon Sonam's explicit request. The petition challenges. So supposedly 2 weeks before she died, she told the people, don't let the dude in. However, on Friday, September 13th, her ex-boyfriend made a, quote, unexpected visit to the building that startled Sonam. How did it startle her? Did she let him in? What I don't understand this. On Saturday, the 14th, the next day, she received a text from the ex-boyfriend that a competitive jiu-jitsu fighter, he was a competitive jiu-jitsu fighter, suggesting he and Sonam watch a pay-per-view UFC fight at her apartment that night. If you don't trust the boyfriend, why is he coming over to watch jiu-jitsu fight with you? Okay, anyway, that's what he claims. Sonam supposedly got this text. Now, I don't have any proof from a family or whatever that she really got the text and that she invited him over and allowed him into the place. That's the next question. If she's that frightened of him, why would she be letting him in to watch a jiu-jitsu fight? Anyway, the ex-boyfriend claimed he left the apartment at 7 a.m. on Sunday, September 15th. He said he returned to the apartment on Monday, September 16th to walk their dog, which is when he found their body. Okay, if he left at 7 a.m. in the morning, that means they had sex. I'm sorry. There's no real jiu-jitsu is not on until 7 in the morning. So you watch the fight, you say to the boyfriend, go home. But if he actually left that late in the morning, then clearly something else went on, right? All right. But he said, okay, so he left 7 a.m. on the 15th. Cell phone. Then he said he came back on the 16th. Let me get this straight. 24 hours later, on the 16th, on Monday, to walk the dog. And that's when he found her body. So 24 hours later, he came in. He had access somehow. If not supposed to have restricted access, he obviously had a key to the apartment. They got in, opens up the place, and finds her body, supposedly. Why does he have this key? Why does he have this access if he supposedly is not supposed to have access? I don't understand any of this. Now, could he have copied a key? Well, sure. But why was he over there watching any fight with her? Did this really happen? And did she what? She could change the locks. I don't understand any of this crap. Anyway, so then cell phone records show she didn't use or access the phone after 12:16 a.m. on Sunday, September 15th. Okay, so now we go back. Let me get this straight now. So what he's claiming, okay, so now we get to this thing that maybe this is suspicious. He claims he left at 7 in the morning, but cell phone records says she didn't access her phone after 12 a.m. that same night. So they watched this jiu-jitsu fight, supposedly. At 12 a.m., she never accessed her phone again. And he said he left at 7 in the morning. Well, okay. If she's sleeping till 7 in the morning, she's not accessing her phone before he leaves. So could be true. She could be dead. She could not be dead. I don't know. But then she was found dead in the same clothes she was wearing on Saturday. So the theory here is that she's wearing certain clothes. Let's say she's wearing this purple shirt on Saturday. He comes over, they watch jiu-jitsu. At 12 o'clock, she no longer accesses her phone, but that could be because she's asleep or having sex or whatever. He says he left at 7 in the morning, but then the next day she's found dead in the same clothes she was wearing before he went out. So here, now you have something interesting. Why would she be wearing the same clothes? Now, could she have been drinking and fell asleep and then woke up and killed herself? I guess. The story is strange. Story is strange. All right, so then it says she had dry blood around her nose, but not on her hands when found, and the belt she allegedly used to hang herself was smeared with blood. So the question would be, first of all, why does she have blood on her nose? Secondly, why is there blood on the tie? Well, I don't know. If you have a bloody nose, you could go like this and put on a tie. So I don't understand that. Indicates the mechanics that a third party was literally raising her and doing so got blood on their hands. Now, that's kind of nonsensical, but okay. Until the blood smear on the ligature is better explained, you can't rule out the presence of a third party. At the minimum, further investigation is demanded. All right, so I don't know. I don't know how much is true and how much is not true. This is the problem you're going to get when you read stuff off the internet. So the family's trying to get a lawyer out there, trying to get this thing to be reopened, to be reclassified as undetermined, like Ellen Greenberg. But the question is, I don't have the information on the autopsy. She supposedly has bruising on her body. So the question would be, why would he, if he's killing her and then staging his crime, he'd have to be fairly aware that this would be a good way to stage a crime, to to find the robe and use that, which is kind of interesting that he would know that. And then he would have to have her passed out when he did that, probably. Could it be true? He's a jujitsu fighter. He knows how, he knows how to have somebody tap out and not, and then she, and hang her before she gets a chance to recover. Sure, this is interesting. I don't object to this case being reopened and looked at. I just don't know how much of this information is accurate. That's the problem I have, is that we're hearing this from the media and the family and the lawyer. And you always have to be a little cautious with that, because I have worked with families and I've seen them put out so much information that is simply not true. So I don't know. I don't know, but I would definitely like this one to be reopened, because if there was blood of any sort, I want to know where it comes from. I want to know how it would affect the ligature around her neck. I would want to know that. I want to know the exact details of when he was there, how he was there, why he was there, and all how he accessed the apartment, all that kind of stuff. I would want to know all of that. But I would want to know it from actual police reports and not from a lawyer, because I just don't know the reality of it. So, but that's the one I was asked about. So it's interesting, very interesting. Hi, Clarissa. Clarissa rolled in. Okay. What are we back to? Are we back to Amy Bradley again? God help us. Nobody was trafficked. God, who thinks they're trafficked now? Is that Amy Bradley? Please do not talk about Amy Bradley right now, because it annoys the crap out of me. Because News Nation had the gall to question that she was trafficked. News Nation should be a reputable media source, and they're not. They're falling apart completely. So I don't know who if you're talking about Amy Bradley being trafficked, but that's just freaking nonsense. She died on the ship. Nobody trafficked her, and it just annoys the hell out of me. Trying to go backwards to see what somebody was saying now. So I don't know which one you're talking about, but if it's Amy Bradley, she was not trafficked. Let's not discuss it. That's all I want to say. She wasn't trafficked. I'd be absolutely berserk. I want to mention the Louvre. Well, because that's a topic right now. The Louvre. Somebody has broke into the Louvre, and here it is. I've been there. Been to Paris. I've been to the Louvre. Gorgeous stuff there. And here is the area. The Gallery of Apollo was the one that was broken into, and they stole like over 100. Let me get this straight again, just so I get the number right. 102 million dollars worth of jewels. $102 million worth of jewels. Most insane thing I've ever heard. And this is just one of the examples. There was a crowns were taken, beautiful necklaces were taken, absolutely historic pieces of jewelry were taken. And the question comes down to, first of all, how do you have such poor security that these people can break in during the day and steal, and know exactly where they're going to get in there and grab all that jewelry, the crowns and all the beautiful necklaces, crowns and necklaces? How do they do that? So anyway, it's an estimated over $100 million worth of jewelry. And they're questioning the guy, one guy runs the Louvre. They're like, how the heck could this happen on your watch? It's a historical loss caused by theft. We can hope that the perpetrators think about it and won't destroy these jewels for no reason. Oh, come on, don't be an idiot. These jewels are going to be destroyed in a second flat. They don't care that they're historic. What they cared about was the value of the jewels, which is over 100 million. Now, interesting enough, they didn't steal the artwork like Mona Lisa off the walls. Why? Because you have to sell a painting as an entire painting. And you have to find some black market to sell something that famous. Very difficult. But you get jewels. It's a crown. Who gives a crap if it's a crown? You take a sledgehammer, you break it up, and you got 100 diamonds to sell in the market. That stuff's gone, folks. I mean, it's gone. They've lost all that historic jewelry and crowns. They've lost it because they're going to immediately be demolished, ripped apart, and sold on the market. It's separate. because you can't prove anything as a separate diamond or whatever. That's where the money's at. That's why they didn't care about the artwork on the walls. They wanted the stuff that they knew they could sell anywhere in the world. So, yeah, no, you're not getting back your historic things because you didn't do a damn thing to protect them properly, which I find absolutely astonishing. It says hundreds of police officers are now in ongoing investigations at the Louvre. 4 main suspects in the ongoing investigation, but it's possible there are other accomplices. Well, apparently, when they got in there, they told the security guards, "Get out, go away." The security guards ran away. Now, I don't know what kind of security guards you have in the Louvre, but those guys should be armed and they should shoot. And if they run away, they're either not armed because you're morons, or they're in on it. They're in on it so that they do not disturb what is going on, so they ignore what is happening. So I would assume they're under question right now. They're being questioned. Unbelievable. Just bonkers. I mean, trying to see. Yeah, it says right here, among the jewelry taken in the brazen daytime heist. Daytime. Now, we're not talking about the night. They went up on a ladder. They had the thing and moved them up to the window that was there. They went in. They had all the equipment, and nobody stopped them during the day. I don't know. That's absolutely pitiful. That's some pitiful stuff there. Years ago, Christoph says the same thing happened in the Green Vault in Dresden, Germany. Also the crown jewels. They simply climbed into a toilet window. Pitiful. Did they catch them or not? Let's see. The art and jewels will be insured. Yeah, I'm not going to get into the insurance thing because I really don't know about it. But what a shame, and whatever. That's just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, that's appalling. It's absolutely appalling. It's that kind of thing. It's just pitiful. It shouldn't happen. I mean, it just shouldn't happen. I want to point out this. I just want to mention this case right near my home, which wasn't a jewel heist, but this one. This is what we're dealing with today, and a lot of places in the world, but certainly even in my own community. Where is it? Hold on a second. Where to go? Oh, no. Okay, hold on a second. Well, it was here. Hold on. Here we go. This is the high school that my granddaughter could go to, right down the street. It says here, student shots fired in high school are robbed in Bowie, Maryland. A high school student was robbed with shots ringing out shortly after the incident on Monday. Officers responded at 2:30 p.m., daytime again, where a Bowie High School student had been approached by a person in a black Acura, demanding the student's moose knuckle jacket. The student suffered minor injuries and was taken to the hospital. A bystander tried to follow the Acura, but one of the people associated with the vehicle fired 2 shots in the air, causing the bystander to stop. Both of the people tied to the robbery and shooting were masked, and one was armed with a semi-automatic handgun. And the car that they had stolen plates on it. But this is what interested me. This is the jacket they wanted. So I have 2 thoughts here, and I want to know what your 2 thoughts are. This is a moose knuckles jacket. They're not all quite this expensive, but they're freaking expensive. And obviously the guy was targeted for that. So I want you to profile this case. What's your profile? We're talking about a local high school, 2 armed suspects, masked, stolen vehicle, or at least a stolen tag. No, that's, and they're stealing this jacket from the student. Okay, Clarissa, oh, wait a minute. Clarissa says, shouldn't be wearing that to school in the first place. A lot of people said that. It's like, what in the heck are you doing wearing a jacket that is that incredibly expensive? They're fashion freaks. Oh, I like this one. Perp knew the student. Inside job, classmate or a parent of a classmate. Probably not a parent. These are probably teenage. I believe they're teenage thugs, essentially. But they had to have seen this jacket. They didn't just show up for no reason, just happened to be driving by with their fake tags or a stolen car. They're just driving by with their ski mask on when this guy just happens to be there with his jacket. Yes, very good. Mask, gun is premeditation. Maybe they were reclaiming it. Oh, interesting thought about the reclaiming. People drive by the school every day. Well, if I were a police officer, one of the first things I would do is I would be interrogating the student. Why? Because either his parents, now mind you, the high school that we're talking about is a public high school. The wealthy parents in this area send their kids to private school. So this kid is going to public school, and it's not the best public school right now that we have in the area, which is why we hope my granddaughter doesn't go there. Anyway, but the parent, is a parent buying their child a $1,000 jacket to wear to school? Or did the student buy the jacket himself? This is an interesting point. Maybe a drug deal came in. Maybe. Just the jewels in Louvre are not insured. Really interesting. A can of hair mousse exploded in your bathroom. That's a crime in itself. The question would be for me as a police officer is I want to find out why that student has a $1,000 jacket. Is he involved in some kind of criminal activity? And therefore, are the people who had got the jacket from him also, well, clearly they're involved in criminal activity. What kind of likely teens are they? So do these teens all know each other? And is this a drug issue between these teens? That's what I'd be looking at. But could have ripped it off himself. He could have. So I'm gonna tell you that there's an article here, and we'll never hear another thing about it. This is the way it works when it's juvenile stuff. It just vanishes overnight, and you never hear about it. Who's involved? Why anything happened? It will vanish. But it's a concerning thing when you're talking about right down the block. This is what's going on. It's just, yeah. Not happy when I see that happen in the neighborhood. Now, I want to mention this case because I was asked to talk about this case, and I want to talk about this case. This is a case. I want to show you who did it. Hold on a second. I gotta find it. Where is she? Where is she? Hold on. I want to point out a YouTuber I thought did a good job. So I try to do that. Where is she? Hold on a second. This is a case. Where'd she go? No, I had a picture of her specifically because I wanted to give her some credit. Hold on a second. I gotta find it. Oh, hold on. Let's see if I can find the woman who had the channel she did it on, and I do want to give her some credit because I thought she did a good job. Hold on, I gotta find it. Where'd it go? As I told you, I was having terrible problems with nothing was coming over. Nope, still nothing. I'm having okay, hold on a second. I want to show you. I'm going to link her below because I think she deserves some credit here. And for some reason, it didn't come over. Interesting case where a man was murdered in the Philippines. Let me find it. Let me find the case. Come on now. Where is she? Hold on. Got to look this way. Well, that is bizarre. All right. I'm going to do it the other way. Hold on. Stephen Davis. Okay, the woman who did the story is. Let me find her. There she is. Okay, I want to show you a picture. I'm going to try to link it below.
£60,000 a year.
Okay, this is. I'm just going to show it to you this way because I can't do it a better way at the moment. Her name is Zoe Spinette. This is the murder of Stephen Davis, and she got 8,000 views on this, and she's got only 12,000 subscribers. And she told the story of the murder of Stephen Davis. And the reason, I really want to send this over, so I'm going to try to send it over by, because my whole entire thing is down, but I'm going to try to send it by. It's a very slow way to do it, but okay, here she is. I'm going to send it over by email, and then I download the email. It's a real pain in the ass. But for some reason, my OneDrive isn't working, and none of my photos came over, so I had to do everything individually. It's a real pain in the ass. Okay, but I'm going to... Zoe, I just want to put this picture up for her because, again, I do like to credit people when they do a good job. I really do. I feel like it's important because I trash so many people. That if I'm not going to trash them, I want to, be nice at least. Okay, hold on a second. I'm trying to get, am I still here? I'm trying to get the download here. Oh, here she is. Okay. It's showing up. I just have to do it the really long and hard way. It's such a pain in the ass. Okay. All right. Hold on a second. We'll get back here. Okay, go here and go back to here. All right. That's why it's a hangout. I mean, you can't expect everything to go well here. Okay, here she is. I really do want to give her credit because I did. So here she is, The Murder of Stephen Davis, Philippines true crime story by Zoe Spinette. First of all, she's got a wonderful voice, very, very soothing voice. She speaks very well. But I'll tell you what I really liked about her, Zoe. So I definitely want to give a shout out to Zoe. Now, I haven't checked out all the other stuff, so hopefully I'll still like her after that. But anyway, the reason I think it's so amazing is because something else is missing from my thing, right? Son of a gun. Is that missing too? Oh, no, wait a minute. I'm trying to find it now. Oh, no, here it is. This book is called For the Love of My Son by Margaret Davis. This is the mother of the young man, the man who went missing. I wouldn't call him young man. He's in the 30s, whatever. Okay, so I want to tell you the story. And what's so fascinating about this story is what the mother leaves out of the story and what Zoe added. I bought the book from Zoe. I bought the book from Margaret Davis. I bought the book because I wanted to find out more about the man who was murdered. And she was definitely a mother who was very cagey about giving all the information she could, shall we say. So I'm watching Zoe's then, and I'm like, oh, Zoe put some things in there. She's very careful. She doesn't analyze. She tells a story, so I appreciate that. She doesn't do any analysis. She tells a story, but she puts in information that the mother specifically left out. So I found this absolutely fascinating. So this story goes like this. So Stephen, he is murdered. There's no question. He was a victim of a horrible crime. And let's see if I can find a picture of Stephen here. So Stephen, okay, I've got to find it here. Hold on a second. Everything's out of order because I had to pull everything over, and it was very difficult. Well, Stephen, God, where is it? Okay, here we go. So hard to see anything here. Okay, so here we have. All right, Stephen. Those are the parents on the left. That's his mother and his stepfather, who he very much appreciated in his life. This is Stephen, and that is his wife. Okay, now the wife is a Filipino prostitute. I'm going to tell it like it is because people like to always, frame things in a different way, which the mom sort of kind of try to frame things in a different way as well. All right, so hold on a second. Now I'm going to look for the story here. so I can tell you the whole story. Where is it? Where are you? Where are you? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Okay, hold on a second, folks. All right. Not for his mother. Okay. It's very hard to find even a good story about it, but I did. Okay. In 2002, Stephen Alston Davis, a British businessman, was the victim of a homicide that occurred in Manila, Philippines. His passing would permanently alter the life of his mother, Margaret Davis, which absolutely did. So he was a young man who was is a British businessman, and he had gone over to, I think it was Hong Kong, and then he went over there and he did tech stuff. He was quite young, and he then joined this airplane, like whatever club thing. I don't know if it's fake airplanes. I don't know what it was. Anyway, they went over to the Philippines, and he started hanging out in the Philippines. But where did he start hanging out in the Philippines? He started hanging out in the #1 sex trafficking place in the Philippines. Well, sex trafficking is a bad word for it. Let's put it this way. A lot of underage minor women are in the prostitution business down to the age of 12. So he was hanging out at this place, which is known for this, with his buddies. And while he was there one day, his mother says he went on a date with this girl, Evelyn. This is Evelyn. He met her there at the bar, and he went on a date. Now, usually they get like £5. They get like £1 to work there for the night, and then they get £5 if they sleep with one of the customers. And I think there's some level of once you work there, you owe so you're kind of like stuck, shall we say. Well, he goes on a date with her, and then he gives £500 to the bar and to release her from her contract. And because he wants to save her from this world of prostitution. And eventually this is when he marries her. She's 17 at the time he marries her, but she wasn't 17 at the time he met her. Mommy kind of ignores that fact that her son was paying for teenage prostitutes. And he bought one, essentially. She says, oh, he fell in love. Look, he went on one date. You don't fall in love on one date. He bought himself a young girl. Sorry, Mommy, I'm just going to say it. That's what it looks like to me. Bought himself a young girl who he installed in his home, where she got a better life because instead of having to work in the bar, she now had one man, which is what she wanted. She told her own family when she was very young, 10, 11, 12, I want to go work at a bar where I can meet a rich American or European man, where I can get a better life, because she didn't want to live a poor life. And she got lucky because this guy bought it, essentially. And so don't tell me he just was trying to help her out. He was having sex with her. You're not going to tell me he didn't have sex with her. And she was, at the time, as far as I know, was 13 years old or 14 years old when she was working in the bar. So he bought himself a minor girl to be his. And he called her his princess. And he bought her all kinds of clothes and fancy things because he liked having a princess. But he liked having a princess he was having sex with, so it wasn't innocent. And Mommy doesn't mention that stuff. She's just like, oh, he fell in love. Okay. So they get married when she's 17, at least theoretically. He's 10 years older. Okay, so anyway, they get married. They have a couple kids. These are the couple kids they have. This is the grandparents and with the 2 children that they have. And then he starts complaining that she's like, he gives her tons of money and all this stuff, but all she does is lay around all day long. She doesn't take care of the kids. She's like lazy, and she's just giving all her money to her family, which, by the way, is exactly what you expect. Because when you're going to help out a person from a country where people are very poor, you're going to help their family. And the money you give to the family isn't so outrageous. He was making a shitload of money. So he had the money to spend. And he's giving some money to the family so they could buy a boat so they could fish. Okay, nice. You're going to help your in-laws. There's nothing wrong with that. And nothing unreasonable about the fact that they might expect that, or your wife would expect that, because that's part of the deal. You get a hot young thing, she gets some money for her family. Anyway, he starts complaining that she's not, being the best wife, best mother. And then there's this claim that she's like on the phone, like talking to some guy that's not her husband, and she's hooking up with some Filipino dude. And and then some of the money that he gives her for like for the kids' education seems to end up in this guy's motorbike that he now has. So I know she's cheating on him. Well, yeah. But what's interesting, when I read the book, Mommy didn't mention this, but it's mentioned in the show, which I give Zoe credit for, that his friend said, well, he was going back to the bar where he found her, and he was paying for prostitutes, young prostitutes. So he was doing that. Now, I don't know who was doing what first. Like, she messed around on him, so he was going to mess around on her, or he was messing around on her, so she messed around on him. I don't know. But he's back at a bar hiring underage prostitutes. Mommy, your son was not exactly that great a guy. Sure. No decent man hooks up with any woman under the age of 18. I don't care what your excuse is that he's helping get her out of poverty. He went to a location in the Philippines was known for the #1 place for sex with young prostitutes under the age of 18, down to the age of 12. And your son was there paying for them. He bought a girl. He married the girl, which is, at least he did that. And now he's back at the bar doing the same thing. Well, wifey got a little concerned, because he basically said to her, look, he was very controlling as far as I can see. He gave her an allowance and all this stuff. Now, mind you, maybe he had to be controlling, but the fact was he had these rules. And then he said to her, you need to go to college or you need to get a job. Well, first of all, she was illiterate. So going to college was kind of stupid. Getting a job might be reasonable. But clearly he was saying, here's what you got to do. Now, what he had to do is questionable. Maybe she had to do this, but he could do whatever he damn well pleased. Maybe he was getting bored with her because she was getting older. I don't know. But what happened was, he went to Manila. He has a friend there, and they work together, and they're in Manila in this apartment, which God knows what they're doing in Manila. But anyway, these three guys show up, and they go into their friend's room, and they like robbing the place. And they're like, is this the guy? It's like, no. And is this the guy? And they said they shot him 4 times, killed him. Well, the mother thought, this is really suspicious. She said, the police decided it was, a robbery gone bad. And that was what they came up with. She suspected the wife was involved in getting rid of him because he was about to divorce her. He threatened her with divorce. So she would lose everything she had. So if she killed him off, that would be useful. And so she suspected the wife. And that's totally reasonable, mind you. So she suspected the wife. And the police aren't quite doing what she thinks they need to do. So she hires a private investigator and spends a lot of money. And she also spends money bribing people, as far as I can see. And the one thing she does is, you see the little girl there? She asks the mother if she can have her over for a couple of nights, and then she takes her out of the country. I think that's called kidnapping. You're a grandparent. You're not the mother. You kidnapped your granddaughter. So I'm going to say you got some issues. And then eventually they were worried about the boy being still there, but he was being taken care of by the grandparents. And these grandparents, the grandparents, and they went to them and offered them a bunch of money to take the kid to England. And basically, I don't know why they didn't like their daughter anyway. They're like, hey, we can't even provide for this kid. So, hey, sure, give us some money and you take them. So they basically paid off the other grandparents, to take the kid back. So I'm going to say, I understand your concern. If the mother murdered your son, I get it why you wanted to save the grandchildren. But I'm going to say you weren't exactly legitimate yourselves. First of all, your son was doing something illegal, or maybe not illegal in the Philippines, but he was doing something immoral. And he made decisions that were poor. Then the poor decision he made turned on him because he was making more poor decisions. And then you kidnapped the kids, which is I think illegal. But anyway, eventually they proved that she was involved in the actual, that's what the whole book was about. And everybody's like, oh my God, she proved it. She worked hard to prove that this woman was involved. And apparently I do think she was involved. I think she drove the people to the location, gave them a key to get in the house. So she's in prison for like 40 years to life or whatever. I think they proved that she was involved. I'm okay with that. But what interested me was the way they downplayed other very, very, in my opinion, immoral and unethical things. And I'm not saying the old thing, I'm not saying he deserved to be murdered, but it didn't help his case much by what he did. What he did was wrong. If he hooked up with a 13, 14-year-old girl and bought her, what can I say? Oh, interesting. Yeah, he went specifically looking for that. Well, interesting enough, the whole bunch of guys went over there. And there are men I know who, when they find out that they're going to this place in wherever they're in, Thailand, Philippines, whatever country they're in, even the US, where you're going to show up at a place and you know that what's going on there is wrong. The good guy will say, I want no part of this. And he will get in a vehicle. He will call an Uber and get the hell out of there. But if he's going there on a regular basis and paying for girls, you are what you are. Yeah. Getting older, 17. She was getting older. Now, one of the problems you have in certain countries is that prostitution is the biggest hope some girls have of having some kind of income that's decent outside of being a very poor girl from a fishing village. Unfortunately, a lot of them, when they get into that lifestyle, also get into drugs heavily because it's not very pleasant. So they start doing drugs and then they become drug addicts, and it turns into a nightmare. And it's a horrifying thing. Every man, I don't care what country you're from, any man who goes there and hires those girls, you're scum. You're 100% scum. And I have zero respect for you. So if your wife turned on you and killed you off, I'm sorry. Don't really feel that bad. Sorry, I just do not. Oh. Tetrafit says, when I hear a single man going to Philippines or Thailand, I do worry of the thing about the children. And we know this happens. It absolutely does happen. And first of all, hiring a prostitute, regardless of what their age is wrong. I will stand by that. Why do I say it's wrong? Because it's for a woman, for all the OnlyFans garbage out there and all this fancy stuff these days that, a woman has the right to choose to do what she wants with her body. It is a degrading thing for a woman to be paid for to service a man. It is degrading. And they're doing it for the money, or they're doing it because they're desperate. One of the two. And for a man to treat a woman like that, to pay her to do stuff to him that he can command for her to do, is pretty despicable, because that's not what sex is supposed to be about. So if you're that kind of man, you suck. You really suck. And if you do it to underage girls, you suck double or triple or quadruple. Wow. They made him out to be a saint. They did, like, you're saving the girl. Now, I understand a lot of guys like the compliant young, the women from certain countries, they're compliant. They're happy to. Now, understand, there's a lot of transactional stuff within marriage. If she was at least a freaking adult when he met her, if she was not, and he didn't pay for a prostitute, he met a young woman who was, let's say, 20 years old, living in a Filipino fishing village. And he said, I would love to have, let's say the guy's 40, like my son's, and they haven't gotten married yet. And they're like, I would love to have a very sweet wife who wants to be married, wants to have a family, and I can offer her something. I can offer her a better life. And if she's willing to have a better life with me, I'll treat her as well as I can. And hopefully she'll grow to love me. I'm going to grow to love her. She'll grow to love me. It's like an arranged marriage. I don't have any issue with that. It's a transactional thing, which both people feel like they're going to get something positive from it. But the woman is not underage. She's not being paid for sex. She is being treated properly, and then being offered marriage, which is that's what she would like, and both of them get something out of it. He gets a wife that maybe he can't find in the U.S. right now. Is when you get a certain age, you can't find anybody anymore. Marriage is really messed up in the U.S. Maybe you do. This is an opportunity that you could find yourself somebody who you could have a family with. Yes, she's 10, 20 years younger, but she gets a better life. She gets to have a house and maybe a loving husband. And there's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. But she should be A, adult, and B, not being paid for sex. Yeah. Oh, this is absolutely true. Tetraford says, sometimes the families are so poor they allow this to happen. Absolutely. Because they're like, well, if one of my girls goes on, can make some money and send some money home. Well, yeah, we're okay with that. That's true. Some men think they'll find subservient wives. That is also true. There is a difference in cultural behaviors. And that's sometimes exactly what they want. They want somebody who is a little more compliant, somebody who maybe loves being a homemaker. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, because I got to admit, in the US, in the Europe and stuff, women have gotten to such a point where, for the guy, maybe there's no point in getting married because she's not going to stay home with the kids. She wants to work. She's going to control her own money. And he's like, yeah, man, what's the point? I understand the concept where maybe the old way of having a family is a pleasurable thought, And so, yeah, I understand why some men would prefer to have a woman from a certain country, that maybe that the woman does enjoy taking care of the man, taking care of the home and all that kind of stuff, and having children. And she's happy to get somebody who makes a reasonable income, and she can have a good life and maybe help out her family too. Nothing wrong with that if you do it right. Yeah, 13, 14-year-olds are think she aged out, and she may have aged out. That may be true. She may have, at 13, 14 years old, she might have been very compliant. And then she gets to a certain age, she's like, I'm not doing that. And then you're like, maybe we should replace her. Now, mind you, it is possible he would have been happy to get rid of her and then find a woman who was younger who would then care for his children. It's very possible. Very, very possible. But I just found it fascinating to see the difference between, because when I read the story, I'm like, it's an interesting story, but I have these questions. And then I read her book. I bought the book from Amazon, and I'm like, now I still have the questions. Why aren't you answering these questions? Why are you being so, careful about letting me know what age he was, what age she was, and all this stuff? And I think it's because, yeah, he was not exactly, say, honorable, shall we say. So fascinating story, absolutely fascinating story. Let's see what else. We're closing in on end of time here. Let's just see what I want to do for the rest of this. People have asked me about this missing kid. That's a freaky story, I'll tell you. So this child went missing in Australia. He's only 5. I think he's 5 years old. Gus Lamont, little kid. Hold on a second. I have to look here now because my iPad's also not functioning. Nothing is working today. Okay, and this is let me see if I can find it. The Daily Mail, of course, has the most interesting information on this case. Where is it? Everything we know. Where is it gone to? There's 2 different ones. Okay, this is the one I wanted. Gus Lamont. Maybe not. What we know so far about the missing boy. He went missing. Oh crap! Oh, are they blocking me out? Hold on a second. Hold on a second. I'm getting. Yeah. Okay, get rid of that. Okay. All right. This is what I wanted. All right. The missing pieces of Gus Lamont's elusive family. 4-year-olds. Okay, so he was 4 years old. 4-year-old's mom and trans grandmother are pictured for the first time since he went missing in the outback. So it goes like this. He's been missing for 2.5 weeks. He'd vanished without a trace from his maternal grandparents' remote outback station near Junta on September 27th. His mother, it's his mother's, grandmother's. Gus's mom, Jessica, they don't live together. The mom and dad don't live together due to a family dispute, whatever that means. So the mom lives someplace, the dad lives someplace, and the boy's being taken parents by his grandmothers, one who is transgender. And then one of the mothers, which they keep not quite saying which one of the grandmothers, was not exactly watching her 4-year-old grandchild. And she was supposedly watching the other kid, but left the kid outside for an incredibly long period of time, during which he vanished, supposedly. All right, so, oh dear. Sorry, I'm just going to say, got a little bit more to do on that trans part. Sorry. A little more work. Anyway, sorry. Well, because the first time I looked at one. Anyway, okay, so it's understood the young mom also shares a 1-year-old son, Ronnie, with Mr. Lamont, who does not live at Oak Park Station. Jess, the mother, rarely joined her partner, who was more outgoing, on the road as he toured rural South Australian pubs with the cut snakes. So he was like a musician, I think. And she hardly hooked up with him. So, except for the 2 times where she had kids, I guess. Anyway, they didn't live together because he had clashes with Josie Murray. Josie Murray is who's Josie Murray? Okay, Josie Murray. Oh, yeah. That's the trans grandma. Who, after his, I'm so confused. Anyway, he didn't get along with the grandma named Josie. So he didn't know. So he wasn't around much. A trans grandmother has 2 unusual marriages. Yes, indeed. Okay, so then, but what actually happened? Regardless of the peculiar lifestyles of the people involved, like the mom's kind of not there, the dad's really not there, the 2 grandmothers are there, but okay. So the kid just disappears in the outback, and they haven't found him yet. So the question comes down to, as we do with the question with the Nova Scotia kids. Now, the outback, he's playing on a dirt pile in front of the house, and he wanders away. How far would he go on the outback? How missing would he get that nobody can find him? I mean, the dirt is rock hard. It's pretty flat from what I'm seeing from most of the area he's living in. How would he go that far? So they've looked and can't find the kid. So like the Nova Scotia kids, the question comes down to is, did he wander off and he just haven't found his body? Neglect? Okay, so I don't know exactly how long the grandmother neglected him. A lot of people in a situation will let the kids play outside because generally speaking, the kid plays outside and comes back in. It's not a big deal. The kid doesn't wander away. The kid has his toys in the yard and other things. He just doesn't go anywhere, theoretically. How often do you check on the kid? Now, I heard 4 hours at one point. If you didn't check on the kid for 4 hours, you should be in prison. Okay, because that would be ridiculous. But then I've heard vague stuff otherwise. So I don't have any clue how long the kid was actually not being paid attention to, if that's true. So like the Nova Scotia kids, the question is, Could the child have been outside and just gotten into a mood to go exploring, and they just haven't found his body yet? Or did somebody do something to that child and get rid of their bodies, and that's why you can't find them? So like the Nova Scotia case, I don't know what they're going to find. The Greek. Are we talking? We're talking about, yes. I did a show on that. Yes, where the child was outside playing and then vanished. Yeah, I did a whole show on that. Because I don't believe that he wandered away. I believe that was family involved. What I got? I'm going backwards up here now. Oh God. Oh, for God's, is that what you're talking about? No, she wasn't trafficked. God, no. Oh, I just hate the trafficking thing now. She wasn't trafficked. This whole nonsense about trafficking. I swear to God, if I do nothing else in my entire profiling career, if I can get rid of the stupid sex trafficking crap. So you weren't talking about Amy Bradley, you're talking about Jennifer Kesse. Ugh. You know why parents want to believe their kids have been sex trafficked? Because they believe then they'll be alive. Because if they've been kidnapped and they're forced into sex trafficking, somehow they're being hidden for 20 freaking years, and they've serviced like 700,000 guys, but nobody knows. There's no proof of it. But they're going to pop up at 40, 50 years old, and they're going to be alive. And again, in Florida, you don't have to sex traffic. Well, let's take a look at her picture, because she's pretty good looking. Okay, I'm just going to say that. Okay, Amy Bradley. I'm not trying to be rude about Amy Bradley, but Amy Bradley was an average-looking woman who was not exactly hot stuff. I know the people don't want to hear that, but this is true. She just was. You wouldn't choose her. Let's put it that way. Sherry Papini was too old. You wouldn't choose her. Jennifer Kesse, she's good looking. She's pretty. She's a very attractive, in the right age range, good looking. Okay. Would she make money for somebody? Yes. But do you know how many good looking girls will go into prostitution without being kidnapped? Tons of them. Tons of them. You don't have to kidnap people into trafficking. You don't have to waste your time with that, because they will come and work for you. Lots of girls will go into prostitution on their own. So you don't have to kidnap them. It's too much damn work to kidnap people and have a big police investigation when you can get them just walking in because they want money, because they want drugs, whatever the hell their problem is. And now, a lot of you probably don't watch porn, which is a good thing. But I can tell you, having done some research, it was research. I can tell you, if you go to Pornhub.com, the women there look really good. They're very attractive women. They do it because they want to. OnlyFans, very attractive women on OnlyFans. Some of them are not so attractive. They still make freaking money. There's women my age who make money on OnlyFans, just because there's some sickos out there. But here's another example of somebody who is making a freaking fortune. Where is this woman? Here she is. Okay. I don't think she's that good looking, but if you take away the goofy looking glasses and the supposedly, oh my God. Anyway, she's on OnlyFans. Now let me find the article on her, just so you can get out of the whole concept that anybody's going to be sex trafficked. It's just nonsense. Not that you're thinking that, but that the parents are thinking that. Just drives me crazy. Okay, where is this thing here? Okay. Her dream of becoming a trad wife. She wanted to become a trad wife. Oh, she had a dream to become a trad wife. This whole trad wife thing is retarded. I mean, it's revolting. At 36, she said she thought all her dreams were about to come true. Well, at 36, took a long time. Anyway, the husband, the children, the white picket fence she longed for since childhood, they were within her reach. Or so she thought. After 4 years, she said, the man she once considered her happily ever after dumped her via email and her views changed drastically. Probably dumped you because you're probably got a personality disorder and were a piece of crap. That's why you're probably dumped. But anyway, now St. James lives a life far away from what she dreamed about. At 50, at 58, okay, that's a filter, man. Anyway, I don't know what she looks, I forgot what she looks like now, but anyway, at 58, she's an adult content creator on OnlyFans. She said she's made over $15 million since April of 2021. This is supposedly her now. Yeah, with a filter, with a major filter. Okay. Before then, filters are wonderful things, because I can do OnlyFans now. I'm going to get a filter. I will look 30 years old. I will have better boobs. And there will be all these sicko dudes coming out. And I will make way more than I make doing all this work on YouTube. Anyway, before then, St. James says she aspired for the lifestyle touted by today's self-proclaimed trad wives, short for traditional wife. She pictured herself as a homemaker, subservient to her husband. Now, most people who would like to be a homemaker, I was a homemaker for many years. I homeschooled my kids and I was a homemaker. I never felt I had to be subservient to my husband. I thought we had a partnership. So, if the trend had been around back then, she thinks perhaps she would have been a trad wife influencer. She knows her journey from trad wife in training, as she calls it, to OnlyFans model is an unusual one. After all, most women neither identify as trad wives nor work in adult content. Two camps that seem to be at odds when it comes to how women should express sexuality and seek fulfillment. No, you're just a bunch of tramps who want money. So, come on now. If you're willing to go on OnlyFans, you're prostituting for money or attention or both. Still, St. James believes people can learn from her story. We don't need to learn anything from her story, except don't do what you do. The way she sees it, her life offers both a warning to those who think they've had it all figured out and hope to those who think it's too late to make a change. Yes, at 70, I can go on OnlyFans. I'm so excited. It also highlights the pressures women face amid a surge of conflicting labels and word views. No, we don't. The conflicting labels are like a decent human being and a not decent human being. You don't want to be a not decent human being? Well, then here's what you're doing. Women need to understand there's nothing is permanent, and that's good and bad. As long as you live, you can reinvent. You can become a slut at any age. Sorry. That's so annoying. As long as you are alive. Okay. And that's to men too. You can at some point decide your happiness is more important than somebody else's, especially if that someone doesn't treat you with love and respect. Because we should learn from her. She first wanted to be an actress or a singer. But the conservative culture around her influenced her views. So she decided she should become a homemaker, I guess. And she said that she had a shelf life, and that would be around 40 because of you. She worked various jobs while waiting patiently for Prince Charming. She finally went to Match.com. The man, a handsome lawyer, she said, wanted a wife. He wanted kids, everything she thought she wanted. It was like the lottery. I'd won the lottery. I was living with him. I was taking care of him. What? Did she marry him? What? I didn't hear about the marriage part. She said everything a traditional wife would take care of, except she didn't bother to marry him. I was building a home for us and our future children. Then he started being controlling. And there was a crack in their relationship. And finally, they decided to separate. And now she was unmarried because she didn't marry the guy that was supposedly Prince Charming. And childless at 40, and her dream was crushed. So what should she do? So she struggled financially. She was making about $30,000 a year with no benefits. On top of it, she says she also had to provide for her son, whom she conceived through sperm donation. Okay. In 2021, St. James came across a People magazine article. Thank you, People magazine, you're a piece of garbage now. About a woman who made $100,000 a month on a website called OnlyFans. She thought it was a scam. But she said, pop my eyelids open. And I was obsessed with finding out what OnlyFans was. She does come with sacrifices, though. She's making a fortune. But it comes with sacrifices. She lives with deep concerns about her privacy and safety. Well, maybe if you weren't involved in online prostitution, you wouldn't have this problem. And your face is out there, so I'm sure your family is proud of you. She receives violent threats regularly, and so do her family members. Yeah, because your family members should just disown you because you're people in her life have started treating her differently, including her son's teachers. Poor son. Son's going there. Hey, guys, your mom's on OnlyFans. Your mom's a hoe. But you don't care about your son, do you? She says she wouldn't trade her life now for the subservient housewife role she once wanted. She has a personality disorder. That's all it comes down to. She has a personality disorder. And that's why the guy probably dumped her, because he realized this is not somebody he wants to be involved with. Whew. Tell you. Just unbelievable, some of this crap. You're getting laugh therapy? I'm so glad. Well, we have to get some kind of I don't know what do you want to call it sometimes. You just like you look at this world and you go, it's one thing if a person is involved in prostitution because they're very poor. I say the girl in the Philippines, I get where she's coming from. People are getting into horrible drug habits, which I'm 100% anti-drugs, but they get into drug habits and they can't afford the drugs, so they go into prostitution. I understand why they're in it. And I understand why people go in for money. I get that. But to go out and brag about it and put this out there so your whole family can be humiliated and your son his life can be ruined, you're a piece of garbage. That has nothing to do with the work you do. That has everything to do with who you are as a human being. So, ask for a Mac. Did I not show the Mac update? The Mac update. Okay, the Mac. That's the cat. There are some decent things in life. Where's Mac? I say everything got so screwed up today. I couldn't. Okay, here's Mac. There's Mac eating his little food. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. I have to. Hold on a second. Cripes. Okay. So that's Mac eating his food. I put this little thing, this food going toward me, so he has to. There's a little trail he has to follow to get his food. And here he is. He always closes his eyes to pretend for some reason he doesn't see me. And there he is. So he'll be here very shortly because he's been coming in early recently. But he's still doing his usual stuff. And he licks the food off my hand. I lean over and I give it to him. He licks the food off, and then I put the food trail, and then he comes toward me. And I can sit there and he'll climb onto my lap and he'll eat his food, but he won't let me touch him. So it's been probably closing in on 1.5 2 years now. Still can't touch him, but he will stand on my lap and eat. But he's and he lets me walk around a lot more than he used to. So he's getting a little more comfortable with me just in general. But yeah, he's he's still a very feral cat, so we say. Prostitution is one of the oldest trades in the world, but it used to be more discreet, or at least something you don't brag about. And I mean, I understand that, you're in the old West and you worked in a brothel, you tried to be as proud of yourself as you could because that was the only way you're going to make some money. I just watched, what the heck is the name of that? Oh, shoot. Hold on a second. I got to figure out. I just watched this, McCabe. Okay. Mrs. McCabe. Shoot. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? It's, okay. Hold on a second. I got to look it up. McCabe, Mrs. McCabe. And it's a Western, which is depressing as heck, actually, but kind of fascinating. It's McCabe and Mrs. Miller. It's a Western. It's a Robert Altman film. So if you know Robert Altman, it's always going to be something a little unusual. The film follows a gambler who partners with a British madam to run a brothel in a remote mining town, only to face opposition from a powerful corporation. It is known for its anti-Western themes. And so basically he ends up running this brothel. And you understand why the women are there. And it's it's a brutal film. I mean, it's brutal in the sense that it sucks. I mean, the whole life sucks. Everything for everybody sucks. Nobody is a hero. Nobody's a totally bad guy. Well, maybe some, but it's really kind of it shows life as it might be under really horrific conditions. And those horrific conditions exist around the globe today. So there are people who have to suffer in those horrific conditions. There is sex trafficking, just not the way that it's being pushed today. There is sex trafficking in the world where young people get involved, like this girl in the Philippines, get involved in prostitution very young in order to make money and give it to her family and to get something. She's had this dream, thinks it's the only way she can get it. And the people who have those girls at the bar are scum, that they will put teenage girls in their bar and sell them off to men. That's what you could call sex trafficking. And sometimes they do get trapped there. They're trapped there by the rules and regulations that are put forth. Just like if a girl is brought over the Mexican border from, let's say, Guatemala, and she pays the coyote to bring her over the border, but when he gets over the border, she's got nobody here. So he takes her to a location. We have them right down the road, like an apartment in an area where a bunch of girls live in an apartment, and they're told, you got to pay off the coyote. And it turns into basically a local brothel. And the girls prostitute in order to get enough money to eventually get a break and live in the United States and be free. So that kind of sex trafficking definitely exists, and it's brutal and it's cruel. And a lot of certain places in the world, a lot of young girls and young boys get involved in it, and they're very young, sometimes 9, 10 years old. Horrifying. But to put to paint it as a nice thing in any way, shape, or form is despicable to me. To understand that some people get involved because that's just the life, and they end up in it, and they shouldn't be in it, and they should, if they could, they should get out of it. But these days with OnlyFans and Pornhub and all these kind of places, it's like it's accepted as an alternative lifestyle, which people brag about, and that the media actually pushes. And it's sad because young people then get influenced by that. Young people who would never even think about going that direction think, oh, not a big deal. It is a big deal. It's a horrifying deal. And it's a destructive to the whole, destructive to society. It's destructive to the individual. It's destructive. Everybody's involved in it. And for people to just toss it off as, freedom of choice of what you want to do with your body that's despicable too. So if you're all out there saying that it's no big deal, if you want to sell yourself for sex, it's not a big deal, it's your right, you suck. You suck. So anyway, yeah, it's incredibly sad. Anyway, we hit 5 o'clock, 2 hours. I have tons more stuff I could have talked about, but you all started off with asking me really cool questions about profiling, which I thought was neat. So I will save those things for next time. That'll be probably next Thursday at 7 p.m. And I will be doing The Monster of Florence. I will be doing a show on that on Saturday. I told you there's going to be 4 more days on Saturday instead of Sunday. That I have to move my show from Sunday to Saturday. So I'm going to do The Monster of Florence on Saturday. It's on Netflix. There's a 4-part series on The Monster of Florence. There's a serial killer thing. But there's enough there that interested me, and I was asked to do it. So I'm going to do it. So check that out. So go to Netflix and start watching that if you want to. Otherwise, I will cover all the issues of it. So I will be doing that show on Saturday, 3 or 4 o'clock, depending on my mood and what else is going on. And as soon as the show is over, I'm going to study the medical examiner's report to see whether I think that, I'm going to be doing my whole video on it, but hopefully get out tonight, but if it doesn't get out tonight, it'll be out tomorrow. As far as whether I think that I was wrong in my previous videos on, the fiance, was he guilty or was he not guilty? So anyway, I'll be getting to that. I'm very curious. I'm looking forward to finding out what that medical examiner's report has to say. Because, is it that different from what's been out before, or is it some kind of fancy footwork they're doing to just cover everything up. I don't know. So I will find out. So I'm going to be doing that and hopefully get that out this evening. And again, if you're new to the channel, I always forget, please like and subscribe. And also, if you'd like to check out my other channel, Dear Profiler Pat, I'm going to be putting up another video on that channel. That's my advice channel. And my real advice is don't get involved in OnlyFans. Please don't get involved in OnlyFans. Even if you're my age and you can make $100,000 a year or $1 million a year, is it really worth it? So, I don't think so. Anyway, thank you for being here, guys. It was a kind of a crazy day here. And and so I'll be doing the show on Saturday. Then I'm getting my surgery on Monday. So then I have 4 days to recover, and I'll show up on Thursday. I don't know. I might look like this. I might look like a pirate. I'm not quite sure yet. I have no idea how it works out after you do cataract surgery, whether how quickly you can see well or whether everything is completely screwed up and even my glasses won't make a difference. But I'll still do my show on Thursday. I just I may have to memorize everything I'm talking about because I won't be able to see anything. So, I'm not looking forward to this. A pirate for Halloween. Yeah, maybe it's good timing. I mean, nobody will feel like, oh my God, she's dressed up. Yeah, no. Oh my gosh, maybe. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I have the 3 sets of eye drops. I do have that crap. So yeah, I'll be okay. I hope so because I hope so because so this is just funny for whoever's still around. So I'm doing this painting. I'm working on this painting right now. And so I'm banging that. So the doctor told me what kind of surgery I should get so that I can still see my painting, the colors and everything clearly. And so I'm doing this painting yesterday. I'm like, I love that painting so much more when I can't see it clearly. So I don't know, So anyway, you have to have a sense of humor in life. That's all. I always tell people that. Oh, thank you. That's very nice. I'm not even. I don't know if I'm finished with it yet. I haven't figured it out. I'm putting it at the end of the hallway, and then I decide whether I like it well enough to keep it or I want to mess around with it. Oh, really? That's interesting. My dad just had eye surgery, not for cataracts, for double vision. He could tell the difference the same day. Yeah, I don't know. It's one of these things. I'm not a doctor fan. I don't like getting anything done. And so for me, this is very uncomfortable. But I've gotten to the point where it's this or blindness. So, I got to do something because I've already gone through 2 prescription changes. And now that I need these glasses just even see the computer. These are my distance glasses. They're not even my trifocals. These are my distance glasses. And last week I didn't need them. Now I need them to be able to read even anything. So I can't see crap. So yeah. When you got to do what you got to do, you have no choice. At least I feel like I don't have any choice. So I have to do it. So yeah. So anyway, hopefully I will be able to see well enough to do my paintings in the future and be able to read my comments here. It's just not fun, but thank you for the comments on my painting. So far, I like it. I just haven't decided if I'm finished with it yet. So it's pastel, so you could just go, I think I might have fixed this. It's not like watercolors where once you do it, you're screwed. You got to do it right. But pastels, you can keep messing around with it and change it into something else you might like it. So, yeah, that's for eyesight is precious. Artist and profiler. Well, you have a backup program. When one thing fails, you got to have something else. And also it's really just, I like doing things that are pleasant and positive in life. Spending time with family and friends, traveling, I play table tennis and pickleball, and I've learned I'm doing art. And, if you do enough stuff with homicide and negative stuff, you definitely have to have a positive side of life there too. For me, most of the homicide stuff is mostly about evidence analysis, which is not as let's say, it's not as gory. I mean, it is. I'm seeing dead stuff, but dead people, but it's not the same as getting into the minds of killers and getting on into that negative world. For me, it's more of a puzzle of trying to understand the evidence of what happened. So I think that keeps me a lot more sane than people who get obsessed with psychopathic personalities and serial killers and think that's fascinating. I don't particularly. So that's not my big interest. So even with the Monster of Florence, you're going to see that my interest is in the evidence issues and not so much of just talking about how creepy the guy is. You know? So that is true with all paintings and also acrylics. You can cover up, but you have to remix and then you got to cover. Whereas pastels, I just use my fingers. I was like, I don't want that. I'm like, I can just muck around with it with my fingers. It's just so much fun. I love it. So it's really cool. Oh, what's it? Oh, vertigo. Yeah, you don't want that. That's nasty. I do love bright colors and I love pastels for the colors. Yes, it's very nice. So, oh, thank you. I like the painting. It almost looks Chinese lanterns from off. Can you not see either? Because, you know, one of the things about painting is you're supposed to step back so you see. Sometimes when you're close up at a painting, it doesn't look that good, but you step back and that's when it all blends. So you're actually supposed to not be up against a painting, even the great masters. But, you know, but I did find out, I was like, oh, it looks so much better. The egg gain. Oh, that series is supposed to be sick. And I've decided not to watch it. Yeah, I'm just not interested. So I'm not doing it. But when I don't do copies. I don't do copies, but you know, one day I may sell my paintings. I haven't decided that. Yeah. So, or I'll join OnlyFans. It might do better than YouTube. But no, again, I do YouTube because I like helping people understand things, teaching, and eventually I'm going to say I want to start my third channel for the detectives. And whether I make any money off of it is not as much of an issue as whether out there somewhere across the entire United States, detectives or people want to be detectives are listening in and learning, and that affects. I may never know how it affects a case, but if it affects them going a case in such a way that they choose a better avenue of investigation and it helps solve the case, I would be thrilled. Just even if I never know about it, I would be thrilled that knowledge that have helped them understand would help them solve cases. And solving cases gets a killer off the street. It prevents other homicides, and it gets justice. So, yeah, I'd be stoked for that. But that's a big, huge project, and so I've talked about it before. And you're like, when are you going to get around to it? I'm like, oh, it's a lot of work. So we'll see. We shall see. I'm looking at your funny comments. Okay. Let me go read this entire thing I've got to read. I'm going to make myself a little dinner and read all of that, and hopefully get my. What time is it? 5:14. I might get my show out tonight. If not, I'll get it out tomorrow on. Do I think suicide or murder? Still, we'll see what I come up with. Anyway, thank you for being here, everybody. See you soon. Bye-bye.